Welcome to The Topic, where we highlight Houston Community College, our students, our programs, and our reach into the community. I'm Todd Duplantis. Thanks for joining us this Tuesday afternoon. We're live on Facebook and YouTube. If you're watching us there, we're here usually every Tuesday at 1 o'clock. And you can also catch the show in social media. Look for us as Houston Community College District. Watch it anytime. Watch us on HCC TV as well. Check your cable providers for more information on that. We've got a great show lined up for you. You know, February is African American History Month, and today on The Topic, we're highlighting the accomplishments of 3 African American women who have helped shape the history of Houston Community College. First up is Phara Prestage. She is the Chief Information Officer and Vice Chancellor for Information Technology. Good to see you, Fheryl. Thanks for being here.
Hi, Todd. Thank you for having me today.
We want to start off with maybe telling us about your journey to HCC. How did you arrive and what position you first have? Take us back to the beginning of your career at HCC.
Oh, great. My career here at HCC started now some 19 years ago, 19 years and 1 month to be exact. And so I came to HCC from Enron Industries. And prior to that time, I spent about 20 years in corporate America in various industries, in many capacities, from a data systems analyst up to and through project management and leadership roles. And I, after having spent that amount of time in corporate America, I had the wonderful privilege of being invited to interview for a senior systems analyst position here at HCC. I accepted that position and have had a number of positions here at HCC, all in the information technology department since that time. I've served as a senior systems analyst for our PeopleSoft Finance group, then later a project manager, lead project manager, all in that area. And then in later years, I moved on to become the director of the applications development area. And then ultimately the executive director for the core information services, a number of departments within IT. And then most recently, last 3 appointments, I was the Associate Vice Chancellor for Core Information Services, and then interim CIO, and now here today, CIO.
Let me ask you this. Going back to, I know you were at Enron for a while and worked in the corporate America world. What was the biggest change in jumping from corporate America to a college, you know, an educational institution? That had to be a change of culture and the way things are done.
Oh, great question, and very much so a change of culture in the way that things were done. In corporate America, there was a rush, you know, to decisions, and when you did that, there was generally, especially in oil and gas, funding that was readily available and abundant. In academia, not so much, but not so much in a good way. Things are, sometimes the decisions are made slower, but they're well thought out.
Right.
The greatest difference between the two, though, is that I would say this. And in addition to working for corporate America, I also worked for NASA, which was probably the closest thing to kind of that I did with some training, et cetera, there. Closest thing that I had done to academia. But I would say that the largest difference was that here I can directly see how the work that we do serves to benefit our customers, our students. And so that is probably the greatest difference, I would say, and the one that I'm most appreciative of with that change.
You've championed some causes in IT, mostly bringing everyone up to speed in technology, but also diversity. Maybe you can talk about both of those.
Oh, absolutely. And so first and foremost, I would be remiss if I didn't take time out to promote and express that here in the IT department, we have some very uniquely, amazingly talented resources. In our people resources, our human resources, we have an amazingly talented team. And so much of what we attempt to do here from a technological standpoint, we have somebody within the department that has some level of understanding there. And so we've been able to do some things with regard to internal upgrades of our ERP systems. I've gone through a number of those here at HCC. And we've gotten it to the point that, you know, we can do them without a hiccup. In most cases, other than some minor downtime that we may require, our end users don't even realize that an upgrade has gone on until they log on and go through training and they see the enhancements. And then with respect to diversity, if we are not, and I brag and I say that IT is, jokingly but seriously, IT is probably one of the most diverse departments, if not the most diverse department within HCC. We have a number of cultures represented here, females in leadership, cultures and ethnicities. And so we embrace those differences. It can lead to some very lively debates, but we understand, know, and accept each other's differences, and we respect that, and we embrace the differences.
How do you work on activities to encourage minorities and women to get into STEM programs? I know that's the big talk now in middle school and in high school, but how do you encourage minorities and women to get into that?
Oh, and so from a STEM and or STEAM perspective, one of the things that we do and that I even encourage others in the department to do as well is to engage in outreach activity with our high school students and K through 12. And I particularly like reaching out to those students that are in that middle school kind of range and to give them some appreciation for how cool it is to be a girl that codes. And so I encourage the other employees and team members and leadership in my department to do so as well.
Phara Prestage, we appreciate you being on the show this afternoon. Thank you for the inspiring words and great story.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being here. Phara Prestage, our Chief Information Officer and Vice Chancellor of Information Technology. Coming up on the topic, we're going to speak with one history academic who's also made history here at HCC. You'll probably recognize her. Stay tuned. The topic returns in 60 seconds.
Sometimes what you need just shows up. Houston Community College has your back, whether you're knocking out some basics or upping your game for a better job. Enroll today for spring classes and frame your future with HCC.
For more than a year, we have kept you informed with more than 500 remote episodes. But now we're back, bigger and better with more news and more guests. Join us live every weekday at 10 a.m. on Facebook and YouTube, and on HCC TV at noon and 5 p.m. You can watch from anywhere. We go where you go.
To the topic, I'm Todd Duplantis. Thanks for being here this Tuesday afternoon. We're here live every Tuesday around 1 p.m. Today, we've got a great subject we're talking about. But first, I want to tell you, if you're watching us on Facebook Live and YouTube, you can catch the rebroadcast of the show on HCC TV. You can also look for us in social media under Houston Community College District. Follow us, share us, like us. You know the routine. We're celebrating African American History Month by highlighting the accomplishments of 3 African American women leaders here at HCC. Next up, Dr. Entrice Badger is a full-time historian and HCC Faculty Senate President. Welcome to the show, Entrice. How are you?
I'm amazingly well. How are you? How are you?
It's good to have you with us this Tuesday afternoon. I feel like I see you all the time because for those of you, if you're in faculty, you know who Entrice is. Many of our students know you as well, but you also take part in a number of HCC TV productions. Particularly, I know over the last year, we worked together on Convocations and State of the College and all those types of things.
Yes.
And
even in my past history, I was working with HCC TV years ago where we had like a little reality show, Real Women, Real Professors or something like that.
What happened to that? How come I didn't know about this?
I don't know, but I just put a plug out there, so we have something to talk about later.
Yeah, you don't bring it out there unless you're willing to revive this once again. I like the idea, so let's think about that. Today, though, we're talking about you. You're being here at HCC, but let's talk about how you became a teacher. What brought you to pursue study and teaching of history as a career?
Okay, so I have a very unique road to education, and that is kind of similar to what we hear PK say, preacher's kids. And that I was so busy running away from education until I ran like right into it. And so what I mean by that is education is my family's business. My great-grandmother was an educator. My grandmother was an educator. My mother, my aunts, cousins, you name it. And so I grew up saying, I will never be a teacher, never. And even in my mind today, when people say, oh, so you work at HCC, you're a teacher. I'm like, nope, I'm a professor. It's all about the way, you craft your narrative. And so with that being said, I can remember being a child growing up, loving to sit around and listening to my mother and my father's stories with their friends. And then I would like literally regurgitate everything they said. They were like, get out of grown folks' business. Now I know I was practicing researching and recording their information as a future historian. But academically speaking, I attended Texas Southern University on a music scholarship, and I loved music. And probably my second year, I took a history course from Dr. Merlene Petrie. And so for those of us in the Houston area and in Texas and in African American studies, we know that Dr. Petrie is one of the most amazing historians to ever have walked the earth. And she just made history come alive for me. And there were some topics like slavery and other things that just really, really intrigued me. And so every time I would ask her, she said, well, you just need to take some more class. I was like, oh my God, what? Take more classes? Who wants to take a lot of classes, right? But it fueled my interest. Once I graduated from Texas Southern and had those professors mentoring me, then I was fortunate enough to go to the University of Mississippi, where I studied under the great historian Winthrop Jordan. For those of us that are in the American Historical Association, he's like one of the gods as far as we're concerned. And he did the same thing Dr. Petrie said. He was like, Antrice, you need to research more, study, hone your craft, write. And once I graduated, like most people, when you graduate, you're looking for a job. Yeah. And I came back to Houston, was hired by Jim Sparks at Northeast, taught some dual credit classes. And then the next semester was hired at Southeast as an adjunct by James Patterson, who was still in the history department, and Michelle Novak and Karen Sines. And as we say, the rest is history. And I've been here ever since.
You mentioned as a Dr. Jordan and a Dr. Petrie.
Yes.
You now teach an African American history course. Do you weave in some of the things you learned from them into your course?
And so, yes, most definitely. What I like to say about my courses, whether they're history or humanities, is that it's inclusive history. it's not, although it's titled African American history, if you're really going to be an educator, I was taught not to just focus on that one subject matter. That's kind of like when you look at your individual culture and your family. You don't just embrace one side. You really should embrace everything. So although I teach African American history, I pull in Native American and indigenous history and the influences of Europeans and colonialism, and just have those really, really rich conversations. And one of the things that I noticed early on when I began teaching 2381 and 2382, those are the African American history courses, is that I have just as many non-African American students taking those courses as I do African American students. Wow. And for me, that's a testament of just having those conversations, right, and understanding that across the board, we're all human, we are all connected, and we all want to achieve and be the very best that we can be. And so I love teaching history, but it goes back to sitting at the table saying, I'm never going to do this. And now I'm like, oh, I'm eating my words. Oh my God, I'm eating my words.
Well, let me ask you this. Obviously, you feel it's important not only to work in the classroom, but outside the classroom, because you work on the Faculty Senate. You're also in the HCC Foundation Board Faculty Representative. Obviously, you find that work as rewarding as your work in the classroom?
Yes. And it all filters in to student success, I would like to say. Yeah. So when we talk about the Senate, the first question is what is the Senate and what do you all do? So the short version of that definition is that the HCC Faculty Senate is the deliberative body of the Faculty Association. The Faculty Association is comprised of all full-time and adjunct faculty here at the college. What the Senate does is we have discussions, really, really, really rich discussions about ideas. We talk about various platforms. We talk about how we can impact the college, not just in the classroom, but in the decision-making bodies and on committees. We work with, student success and student services. We go in and out, like you were saying, of HCC TV. What can we do to make the college better, to enrich our students and enrich ourselves? So we have about 7 various committees. We have finance, we have fundraising, we have compensation, policies and procedures, professional development, and that professional development works directly with the foundation in raising funds, educational affairs, graduation. We are instructional technology, diversity, equity, inclusion, you name it, we are there. So we're, I want to say we're like a spider web. We are everywhere. You think you see us, but you really don't. We're everywhere.
You're everywhere.
Everywhere.
Dr. Entrice Badger, we enjoyed speaking with you this afternoon. Thank you for being here. And I want to hear more about that reality show, okay? Okay. We're going to talk more about that in the future.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. We are going to take a short break, 60 seconds. We'll be back. We'll be meeting with Vice Chancellor of ours, Innovating for Student Success. Stay tuned. The topic returns shortly.
Sometimes what you need just shows up. Houston Community College has your back, whether you're knocking out some basics or upping your game for a better job. Enroll today for spring classes and frame your future with HCC.
When I was your age, I was just like you, fascinated by stars. But now I get to search for life in the universe. And who knows, maybe life is looking for us too.
So we're like aliens to them?
Yeah. Does anyone want to be a scientist now?
I do.
Awesome. We need more girls in STEM.
Maybe we can find aliens.
Things could be stranger, but I don't know how. I'm going through changes, through all of the strangeness. I'm going through changes now.
Welcome back to The Topic on HCC TV. And of course, you're watching us live right now on Facebook and YouTube. You can watch the rebroadcast on HCC TV and follow us in social media. Look for us under Houston Community College District. We're talking Black History Month here on HCC TV's The Topic. And we've got our final guest on this afternoon, HCC's own Dr. Shantay Grays. She's the Vice Chancellor of Student Services. Dr. Grays, good to see you here with us this afternoon. Thanks for being here.
Hi, Todd, and hello to HCC TV. I don't think I've been on this semester yet.
I don't think so. We've had you on our other shows, but it's good to have you on The Topic as well. Let's talk a bit about you. I want to know about your career here at HCC and when you started, how long you've been with the college, and what attracted you to HCC.
So, that's interesting you asked, Todd. I was just having a conversation with a few colleagues and reflecting on my journey. I've been with HCC almost 24 years. So wow. Needless to say, I started very young. But no, seriously, I really did start almost fresh out of undergraduate. I graduated from Grambling State University in Louisiana and came to Houston, where I was born originally and have family here. And took a short stint in corporate America and realized very quickly that I did not enjoy it. Decided to pursue other options and started working HCC part-time in HR, believe it or not. I worked in the compensation department and then quickly worked my way up, but realized how much I learned in a very short amount of time and how compassionate the people were. And so very quickly moved through this organization. I mean, it was remarkable. I think I was on a trajectory of moving within the organization every 2 years or so. So worked my way up from part-time to a full-time position and transitioned to student services, worked in a variety of capacities in student services before taking on the role of chief of staff and working for 3 chancellors, including the current chancellor, serving as the associate vice chancellor of enrollment management, into now where I am today as serving in the role of vice chancellor of student services. It's been a remarkable journey for the past 23 and a half years.
Yeah, you're a shining example for anyone watching, especially our students who are thinking of going into education, where you really can start somewhere and move up, where, there's no ceiling. You can continue to move up in your career. And you've proven that here with what you've done at HCC. When you first started, did it come into your mind that, one day I think I might want to be a vice chancellor?
Todd, and it's so funny. I had no aspirations of being in higher ed. My journey was to find a job. My parents told me it's time to start being a little bit more self-sustaining and be a little bit more responsible for myself. I was going to law school and I thought I'd take this job and this role on to help pay the bills. Yeah. Never did I imagine that I'd be in the role that I'm in. And I'll be quite honest with you. This is really where I was meant to be, to serve people and to serve the community. And I'm just so passionate and thrilled to be able to have this opportunity.
I want to talk about some of your accomplishments over your career, but one thing you've done, and I know you've done this most recently as well, you have conducted research into factors affecting the graduation rates and persistence rates for African-American and Latino men. I know that's been very important. I've seen some of the research and some of the meetings we've had. Maybe you can tell us about your findings and what you've been able to learn from this.
And thank you for that, Todd. It's not often I get a chance to talk about my doctoral research, but I actually took so let me start here. The requisite literature was, there was tons of data about all of the deficits, right? Where the students encountered challenges, what the limitations were, what were some of the services needed to get students motivated and encouraged. And the approach I took was looking at the anti-deficit framework, which is largely based in the research expounded by Dr. Sean Harper, and really working on identifying those factors that really impacted those males who have been academically successful. They're high achieving. So, as opposed to looking at all of the limitations and barriers, I decided to take a very proactive and positive approach. Where students, we found that they're self-affirming. They are all ambitious in their own right, but there are things about the community that institutions and organizations would benefit from understanding. All of the cultural nuances that males of color bring with them, not just the social and emotional issues, but there are also some familial responsibilities. And then there's this sense of self-awareness that really does impact the males, I think, perception around their ability to be academically successful. This work translates even to the students that we serve today. Our students are not, I would say, they're not necessarily unique in their understanding around this effort. They are aware, but they also recognize that, it is because of their own self-efficacy, their own ability to believe that they can achieve certain things, that they've been able to do so. So being able to see that reflected, influencing the decisions that I'm making, the work that we're doing as part of our Achieving the Dream and other pathways work, really has translated to what we're hoping to be improved student success outcomes for males of color at HCC.
When you were doing this research, is there one thing that stood out the most, that maybe surprised you the most, that you thought, wow, I wouldn't have ever thought that? What would that be?
I would say for males of color in particular, the real issue was this grappling with what's called two selves, right? There is this person who is the breadwinner, who is the male dominant figure in the community. They have a very different persona. But when they come to school and they are academicians and they are exceeding, they grapple with that. There is an emotional display that really does create some challenges, right? Where it's often and misrepresented to be cool. You cannot be academically gifted. So you have to downplay your academic excellence to be in order to fit in culturally. Those are some of the things that we do have to take into account for those students who are successful, who come from very differing backgrounds. How do we make them feel comfortable and self-aware? How do we create an environment that nurtures all of the nuances they bring with them, and then celebrate their successes collectively as a body of men, but also as an organization?
And I would imagine the last year and a half have thrown everything. Did that change your way of thinking on how we need to serve our students, obviously, with having to go through this pandemic?
The pandemic, also, I think we had an intersection of several things that happened over the past couple of years, right? The social injustice and the concerns of the political climate has taken a toll on our students mentally, emotionally, and we're starting to see that. I think it's important as an organization that we recognize all of the impacts that has made, not just on students, but think about the faculty and staff, what that meant. If you reflect back to the situation around George Floyd and the heightened sense of concern among the African-American community, being very sensitive to all of those nuances that many people of color carried with them emotionally. You carry the burden of being Black and every day, and you can't do anything about it. But how do you also desensitize those who have been so, I think, far removed from that experience that it's hard to relate? So creating space for courageous conversations, being an advocate for issues that impact all people, not just people of color, and then elevating that discussion at the executive level, which is why I've committed to taking the charge on a lot of the equity work in partnership with Dr. Donna Davis, our new Chief Diversity Officer, right?
Dr. Shantay Grays, Vice Chancellor of Student Services, we appreciate you being here on the topic this afternoon. We're running out of time. Great show. Glad you could all join us. I'm Todd Duplantis. We'll see you next week.